Greetings loyal subscribers and honoured guests. Microsoft recently celebrated the 20th anniversary of the original Xbox's release, and part of that was the announcement that a further 76 original Xbox and Xbox 360 titles had been made backwards compatible with the Xbox One and Xbox Series consoles. This has been the first new batch of backwards compatible games since the program was suspended while Microsoft focused on finishing off Series X and S, but sadly it is also looking like it will be the last. So we will most likely never get to play improved versions of titles like the Project Gotham series or Blur on our current consoles. Despite that, there was some really good stuff included in the latest drop, and it has served to get me excited about covering some of these games on the channel. I'm beginning with Binary Domain, which was developed by the Ryuga Gotoku studio, most famous for their Yakuza series and the spin-off Judgment titles. Way back in their history, many of the same team were also part of Amusement Vision, which developed fantastic games such as Super Monkey Ball and F-Zero GX on the GameCube, so I'm a big fan of their work. Binary Domain was originally released for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 back in February of 2012, with the Windows PC version appearing in April of the same year. As recently as March 2021, director Daisuke Sato has expressed his wish to release a fully remastered version of the game, but this backwards compatible version makes that feel unnecessary, at least on Xbox platforms. Thanks to three key features of the Xbox Series X hardware, Binary Domain almost feels brand new again. First, we have Quick Resume, which most games on the system can utilise, which suspends the game in a dedicated block of memory reserved just for that purpose, and will let you jump back in almost instantly, even after having played multiple other titles or having fully powered down your console for an extended period. Then there is Auto HDR, which allows games that are never specifically designed for today's 4K TVs with high dynamic range to take full advantage of the display and make them appear more vibrant than they ever have been before. Finally, there is FPS Boost, which still seems like magic to me, as Microsoft has said they don't need to make extensive changes to the code of the game, or even get the original developers involved in order to enable it. This allows games that only used to run at 30 FPS to now run at 60 FPS, for example, or perhaps more importantly, it allows games with inconsistent juddery frame rates to now feel as smooth as silk. All of these elements combine to make Binary Domain feel like a game that was released recently, rather than a relic from almost 10 years ago. But if the game underneath wasn't very good to begin with, then no amount of bells and whistles would make it worth going back to, now would it? Luckily this is not the case. What we have here is another game that plays just like Gears of War, borrowing the same control scheme almost one-to-one. It does share a lot of similarities with Fuse that I looked at last year, but I would say it's a definite cut above that title. In the game, you take control of the rather generic protagonist named Dan Marshall, who has been sent by his employees, the IRTA, to Japan to try and bring in Amada, who has been found guilty of breaking Clause 21 of the New Geneva Convention. This regulation makes it illegal for any company to develop robots that could pass for human. And not only has Amada been doing that, the robots themselves aren't even aware that they aren't human, allowing the Amada Corporation to install sleeper agents within the upper echelons of US military, among other places. Dan is joined by his friend and colleague Roy Big Bo Botang, just one of the extremely memorable side characters that resonated with players back in the day.
Okay, fun stuff now. Try yelling, "Charge!" at the top of your voice. Wow, never have thought of that. On it! But in the future, a charge order means you want to get up close and quick.
Another one is Kane, a friendly robot who speaks with a French accent and who wears a cravat.
Oh shit. They're stopping the train.
Allow me, monsieur. Penetrating urban transit mainframe. Commence code injection.
You can do that?
Fundamentally, Binary Domain does play pretty well, and more common fodder enemy robots explode in an extremely satisfying way. If you blow off their heads, then they stumble around unable to find you, and if you blow off their legs first, then they will drag themselves across the floor towards you. Played on the normal difficulty setting, the game isn't particularly difficult, and you can carry 3 medikits yourself, which can be used to bring yourself back from the brink of defeat. The other 2 squad mates you have with you can also carry 3 medikits each, so the chances of you actually running out and facing a game over screen are pretty remote, but it can happen. Fights with giant boss robots are pretty common throughout the campaign, and while they can be one of the highlights of the game, they can also be pretty irritating too, prone to knocking you down mere seconds after you've brought yourself back to life. The other major irritation in the game is the dumb AI of your squad mates, which wouldn't be such an issue if you weren't punished for their stupidity with a potentially bad ending. You see, as you play through the game, you can increase your trust level with each of them by fighting alongside them, performing well in combat, saving them, and by giving correct responses when they ask you questions. Build up your trust high enough and you will be on course for the best ending. However, should you accidentally shoot one of them while in the middle of a firefight, then you will lose a chunk of trust, and there were many instances where the stupid bastards walked right in front of my gunfire when I was fighting back the robot hordes. So unbelievably irritating. My other minor gripe with the game is that while the graphics of the early game are decent enough, you don't really get to appreciate how good the game can look until around the middle section when you suddenly get to a bright and vibrant part of Tokyo. Before then you were in a mostly grey area in the rain, which is atmospheric sure, but pretty dull to look at. Get past the first 2 stages and the game suddenly becomes dramatically more exciting visually. I don't really have any issue with the sound though. The voice cast are all solid and include actors that are still big names today, such as Travis Willingham as Dan, Troy Baker doing a pretty convincing British accent as Charlie, and Laura Bailey playing the part of the Chinese operative and potential love interest to Faye. The gunfire is satisfyingly loud and the various robots give out electronic screams as they charge at you or are shot into their component parts. This is all rounded off with a rousing cinematic score. The single-player campaign for Binary Domain takes place over 6 different chapters and will take you approximately 8 to 10 hours to complete on the normal difficulty. There is also a multiplayer mode, but I can't really speak to its quality I'm afraid, as I have never tried it. I doubt that the Xbox servers are still up, and if they are, there probably won't be anyone still playing the game online these days. Microsoft are charging $9.99 for the digital version of the game on the Xbox Marketplace, but there's also the option of getting hold of the physical disc if you have the Series X. Taking a quick look at recent completed listings on eBay, you can get the disc version for as low as £3 including postage, so I would go with that option if I were you. I still had my physical copy on my shelf from when I originally bought it in 2012. Overall, Binary Domain is a fun cover-based third-person shooter with a rather goofy plot that has some interesting twists and turns throughout its running time. If you've never played this one before, then I strongly recommend it. It's not in the same league as Gears of War, but I do think it's slightly better than Fuse, which I gave a 6 out of 10. So I'm going to give Binary Domain a score of 7 out of 10. It's almost an 8, but not quite, because I definitely did find it irritating at times, and Dan is a pretty generic douche main character when all is said and done. This recent batch of 76 backwards compatible games has inspired me to make more of these Xbox Zone videos, and I do have several more lined up already for the weeks ahead. I think I'm also going to go back into the library of older backwards compatible games as well and take a look at some of those. I may even play through some of the ones that unfortunately never made it off the original Xbox or the Xbox 360 and review those as well. I really do believe that it's never been a better time to be an Xbox fan, as not only do we get the latest and greatest titles, we also get a large number of games from previous consoles. The people I am most jealous of are the ones that have never owned an Xbox of any kind before. Can you imagine the good times that they are going to have exploring 20 years worth of games? Amazing. If you enjoyed this video, then please consider leaving a like, subscribing and sharing on social media. I'll be back with my next video very soon, which should be my review of Interplay Collection 1 for the Evercade if all goes to plan. My next Xbox Zone video will take a bit longer but shouldn't be too far behind. I'll see you again soon, and in the meantime, take care.